in setting up your grid, you want to place it so that the edge of the paper on the right side is 2 inches in from the right side of your big piece of cartridge paper. So move it over until you have 2 inches between the outer edge of your cartridge paper on the right and the edge of your grid paper on the right. Okay, so that should be fine. And when you do that, prepare some tape. You want to have nicely trimmed small pieces of tape. I know you have that large roll of it with large strips coming off it, but it doesn't look very well on your work. It's too much. So trim it so that they're nice and neat, and put 4 pieces on to get this in the right place. Now, from the top of the paper, it's a good idea to be about 2 3/4 inches down from the top. You can't see the top of my paper, but I'm about 2 3/4 inches down from the top of the cartridge paper to the top of my grid paper. Okay, and then you use put it straight on the paper, as straight as you can make it, and put 4 pieces of masking tape, 1 in each corner, nicely trimmed. You see, human beings, we need to see beauty everywhere. We need it. We can't survive without it, oddly enough. Your job is always about persuasion and that sort of thing. So you want everything you do to have as most beautiful appearance as you can make it. Why not? As always, with everything we do in perspective, we look for our eye level. Remember that every square here equals a foot by a foot. This is relative scale. We're not measuring our squares. I don't know what any of these squares measure, but we're giving them a value, and we're saying that each one of them is a foot by a foot. They're equal-sided boxes, even though they don't look like it out here. They're just past the cone of vision. This box too is a foot by a foot. Now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 feet before we get our eye level. Now, I know this is the eye level because it's a straight line. You can always tell that on a grid, that the horizon line or the eye level is a straight line. And we also have one vanishing point. We have our right vanishing point. So we should label that, and all your pencil crayons should be nice and sharp and ready to go. So this is a right VP, our VP. And the left isn't there, so we're going to have to find it. But let's identify our horizon line first. We'll put that in with a color, and hopefully all your pencil crayons are beautifully sharpened, so you get a nice clean line. To find this vanishing point on the left, we can just use some of the perspective lines that are already there. And you don't have to draw the intervening lines. You see, all you have to do is just take a couple of them. So I'm looking at this one now, right here, and I'm lining my set square up with it, and I'm following it up to the horizon line, and I'm going to make a tick. I'm going to do that with a couple of these and see if they agree. Now, these grids have been photocopied, and the photocopier, the scanner on the photocopier always distorts things. But this is looking pretty good. That tick is working here, and it's working here as well, up further into the grid. So I know it's going to be fine. So I can make this, label this my left VP. And this, of course, is our horizon, or our eye level. And we're going to draw right on this grid. Normally you don't, but in order to do this, I imagine for the first time, I think it will be easier to understand if we do it this way. So we have our 2 vanishing points to draw a 2-point perspective. And now what we need is a 3rd vanishing point. Hopefully you can see my vanishing point here. Now what we're going to need is a third vanishing point that's going to allow us to draw in one point perspective as well. So these two vanishing points, they are used for everything in this grid. So you see all of those lined up as we saw. All of these line up with the right vanishing point. So all of these lines are rushing this way. And we've already done some two-point perspectives, so we know this is going to happen. Okay, so they're all going to line up over here. We also need a single vanishing point. And what you're looking for when you're looking for the one-point vanishing point is a point where all of the squares line up. So the corners of the squares. So you can bisect them in half. So if I take this line and go right through all of these corners, you'll see that this would bisect every one of them right through the corner, and it makes a straight line. This is telling me that all of these boxes, even though they don't look it, are equal-sided boxes. Another way to do that, to check it, is to take another place. And I've put a line here, so you can do that. You can check to see. And you'll see in all of these boxes, that's what's happening as well. All of these, it bisects the boxes right in half at 45 degrees. If I were to follow it, I end up with the same point. And what we have is that the person that is drawing this visual wants us to look right into the corner of this room. If we were to position that person, which is going to be ultimately be us, if we were to position them, we would have their eyes, this would be the back of their head, their eyes would be there, and they would be looking into the room like this. So they've positioned themselves there deliberately because they're telling us to view what I have to show you. This is the best place to stand, and I'm going to continue on and show you exactly what I need you to see. This is the left wall, and as we saw, everything on it, aside from the verticals, goes to the right vanishing point. So it stops at this line at the top. That's the ceiling. From here over is the ceiling. And this is the wall. And you can see the vertical lines, and you can see the perspective lines. So this is the left wall. This is the right wall. And the perspective lines on the right wall all go to the left vanishing point. So it's really the opposite of what you would think. What I see most often people doing is that they use this vanishing point to try to draw this wall, and it would never work. In two-point perspective, and one point as well, you never have to make anything up. In 2-point, you have just two choices. You either use the left vanishing point to draw a line, or you use the right one. You have no other choice. And this, of course, is the floor. And you use both vanishing points to draw everything on here. This is nothing but perspective lines. Some that are racing to the left vanishing point, and some that are racing to the right vanishing point. So now we know we have a floor, a left wall, a right wall, and we have a ceiling that begins where the walls end, of course. It's not usually necessary to make a grid up on the ceiling, and it's very difficult. What we could do, though, it would be quite easy, is just take each of these verticals on each of the walls and bring them up like this. And that would be quite easy. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it will join up with this and make a square. So we'll know that that's a square on the ceiling. That's 10 feet from both corners. It doesn't look square, but it is. We've counted the right number. This is really important. This line right here is crucial. That's the very corner of our room. We're also going to need some graph paper. What we want to do is have the same number of squares and make a floor plan. We've got 15 on this side, and we'll start our corner here. Now this corner is going to be this corner that you see right here. Same thing. It's exactly 15 if you go 2 from this edge. Remember that the corner is always 0. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. We've got 13 on this side. So every square on our grid matches a square on our graph paper inside this little box that we've made. And when we plot something here, it'll tell us where to place it on the floor. And often that's the best way to start, is to put everything on the floor first and then draw it up using the wall measurements. Remember 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our eye level is at 6 feet, 7, 8, 9, 10. And our ceiling is at 10 feet. Each of these boxes, we could do that as well. 0, remember, always 0 at the corner. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Let's start with boxes against the wall. As I mentioned, that's our corner right there. That measuring line, that's our corner. Let's put a box from 4 feet in, down 3 feet, into the room by 3 feet, and over 8 to 8 feet. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So our box is 4 feet wide and 3 feet deep. And it's 4 boxes in, 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes in from the corner. And how you would map that out is to count 1, 2, 3. We've got 4 from the corner over to 8. So it's going to begin here. It's going to end at 8. And it's going to come out 1, 2, 3 boxes. So we're going to stop it there. To draw it, you need to use, remember, both vanishing points. So I'll use the left one first. Now there's a line already there, but I need to distinguish it from the others by putting a little color on it. And then I use this vanishing point. Now, if we had an elevation, that would tell us how tall to make it. But what we can do instead, rather than complicate things more, is just put an arrow and say that we want to make it 8 feet tall. So we have to use the wall measurements. It's the only place we have the heights. And as you know, things get larger as they get closer to us. So the measurement for 8 feet out here, where our front corner is going to appear to be much larger than 8 feet back there. And we just don't know how much bigger. That's why we need the vanishing point. It's there to help us to get that correct. So now we're looking for 8 feet. I follow 8 feet over, and there it is. So that's all quite nice and easy. And we know, again, that all of these, now I need the other vanishing point. I know we have a line there, and that would be easy to use, but as I mentioned, these grids have had to be photocopied for you, so they're not exactly precise. But if we were to use and keep on using the same eye level, same 2 vanishing points, our chances of having something more accurate than the grid are much higher. Okay, so now we have our back where it is against the wall. It's right there against the wall. And this helps to put some color to see what's going on. We don't want to make it too bold though, because this is hidden. This is going to be hidden when we complete the box. And now we will do that. We'll take this forward, bring this forward. Maybe we'll use a different color. This is a slightly different color, that'll help. So I'm lining it up with my right vanishing point going through the corner. And the only reason I'm doing it, remember, is to find out how much larger this will appear closer to me. Now, I'm taking this front corner, the frontmost corner, and I'm going to make a vertical line, and fingers crossed it'll be straight. I have the lines of the grid under to help me. And you see, this is what happened. This 8 feet against the wall looks like that. 8 feet away from the wall at 3 feet, because we're 3 feet away, measures that. I would never have been able to guess that this was how much bigger it should look, unless I'm sketching, and then I've done enough of this, I've done thousands of these, I could make a pretty reasonable guess. And then too, when you're sketching, you can play around a little bit and enhance things, kind of exaggerate things. But you have to do a lot of these before you feel confident doing that. There's nothing really much left to do but to take that height to the left vanishing point, because that's how I drew the front. I'm looking for the front of the box now. Here you see is my 3 feet away from the wall. At this point on the grid, that's what it looks like. And I go straight up. So here we have now our box. It's 3 feet away from the 3 feet deep, 8 feet tall. And that's what this box on this wall translated into being. We want to draw now a round display. Maybe there are some sweaters displayed on it. We have to have enough clearance. People need to have 24 inches for each person. So that's 2 feet. That's the size of the width of your cartridge paper. So we should leave at least 4 feet. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a nice guide for us to know where we ought to start our circular item. So I'm going to look here now, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is where it will be on here. We can have 3 feet. So if I do 1.5 this way, this is center. If I do 1.5 this way and 1.5 that way, that will give me what I want. So that's 3 feet. I want to go 3 feet this way, because if I intend to make a circle, I have to have an equal-sided box. So I've got to go 3 feet this way. This is center, so I want to do 1.5. 1.5. There's 1.5. Okay, so I go 2 in from here, and I leave 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I go over 1.5. And this is where this piece would have lined up if we wanted to match the width, but we don't. We want it to be slightly smaller. So I'll go 1.5 on this side, and that's there. Now, it might be an idea, since it's always crucial to know where center line is, the center of both of these items is going to be this line. That's the center of both of these items. So why not put that in? And I'm going to go 3, 1, 2, 3. And it doesn't hurt to kind of exceed, as long as you're keeping an eye on what you're doing, it doesn't hurt to exceed. And I'm 1.5 on this side. So I've got 1, 2, a half and a half makes 3. And this is 3. This is not going to give me a circle. At this point, I could take a little bit off this, and I think I'm going to. If you do this enough, you know that you have to sometimes make little adjustments. So I'm going to take a little bit off here. So I'm only going to go 2.5. Okay, so maybe not even a half. I'm just going to take a smidge off. Otherwise, it's not going to look like much of a circle. It's going to look like an oval. And in fact, this still might look a little bit like an oval, but we'll see. We'll see what we can do here. I'd leave it the same on here. When you do something like this, what you have to do, if it's round, and it has a smaller pedestal, then you have to draw for the larger part first, and then you construct the smaller pedestal underneath. So here's our center, and remember that was our center up here. It's such a beautiful thing the way these two pieces work together, and later on we'll do elevation too, but to keep it a little simple for our first time out on the grid, I thought we'd just work with these. And now when you make your circle within there, you divide into 3, as you remember, divide into 3. And try not to cheat. I always cheat. I don't know why, but try to be as accurate as you can. And remember that the circle touches in these places. So we'll do that. We'll go round. And again, my big fat head is trying to get in here, so I can't. I'm about an arm's length away from this, so forgive me if it's looking pretty shabby. So that's where we're headed. We want to circle. The top of the table is going to be a large circle, and the bottom most likely a small circle or a square. And look, we're not going to get that. This is an equal-sided box, but this definitely isn't, but we're going to try. We'll see what we can do. So let's make an X to get the center. That's how we did it there. It's lining up. So this, we have the same center. So I'm not using this. I've just taken a little bit off, just a smidge. But it did line up with center. So even the grid knows that this was a little distorted and we had to compensate. The width was fine though. Okay, now I've got all the lines I need. I have this line. I have this line right here. And I've got my diagonals. Now I just have to divide the diagonals. And try to be as honest about it as you can. I'm looking at each separate one because every single one of these is different. So I have to look at every individual one. And then the circle is going to touch in these places. So I'm keeping an eye on them. So I just start to round it out. And remember not to fill too much of the box up. Otherwise it's going to look like just another square, and we don't want it to. We want it to look round, so you're thinking round. And what always amazes me is how much smaller this looks than what I initially intended it to look. So with circles, if you want a big one, start out with a really big box and you'll get one. So, but this diameter is 3 feet, believe it or not. So that was not bad. Let's bring it up and see what we get. Let's go for the standard table height. A table is 30 inches, generally speaking. Your kitchen table would be about 30 inches high. For a passerby looking at sweaters, that might be about right. So we'll bring this line over to the wall. I always think of this as when you were little and your parents were watching your growth, they would put you against the door, the doorway, and mark your height. So we want to go 2 feet is 24, and another 6, which is another half foot, is 30. That's the right height. But if we don't have verticals up, we won't know what to do with that. So let's put some up. Now we don't know how tall they're going to be, so you just put them up, and we'll cut them off later. And notice we're not bringing the circle up, we're bringing the box up. Because when we make the circle on the top, we need that box. All right, and there's the back one. I've taken the back of the box. I could also take the front of the box. Let me do that too. You usually just do one or the other. Might be more efficient to take the front of the box. So let's go up. So I'm going up 2.5 feet. That's what I'm doing. So there is no measurement for the height outside here. The only measurement I can rely on is the one on the wall. So that's what you have to do. You have to kind of like push this against the wall to measure it. Because again, we have that same question to answer. How much taller is it going to look once it's out in this part of the room than it does against the wall? And you walk this over. You don't have to draw these lines, but just to remind yourself, especially if this is the first time you're using a grid, it helps. Now you've got to keep track of what's the front line and what's the back line. So this is my front line. I'll just make a little big deal of that so I can clock it. And where this perspective line touches the vertical, that sets my height. So whatever I do from here, it's going to have to jive with that. So I don't have any more decisions to make. I just have to follow that. And it's touching that vertical there. And this vertical at the back is going to touch right here. And then this will line these two up. And I'm using my right vanishing point. And once you get away from the wall, you really, really do have to use it a lot. Although there are a lot of lines rushing in the direction you're going, it's better to be accurate. As I say, the grid has been photocopied, so better to keep a constant with the vanishing points in eye level that you have. Of all the things that we draw, this X and finding center and drawing ellipses, those are the most essential things to be able to draw. And you can create a grid freehand. You don't have to have an established grid like this. You can draw them quite easily freehand. Now, this is going to be impossible for anyone to see but me, but I'm just doing exactly what I did on the bottom, and so should you. And this is essentially what perspective is about. A whole lot of lines crossing over each other, trying to confuse you, And you just don't let it. You just have to keep a focus on the line that you're drawing in the moment. And don't look at any of the other ones. Just keep an eye on what you're doing. And try not to see the other ones. So, and we'll start to clean these up with some black ink in a minute, so we'll be able to see them. And as you know, we always do things in layers. So that would be my table, and it would be correct in perspective. From the center, create the pedestal. And in this case, maybe we could have legs that come forward and legs that go to the side. So we'd have to pick a spot for them to stop. So it looks like here. And I'll be able to find that over here. We'll draw a little box. And I don't think it's a large table, so we don't want a big pedestal under there. So if I chose that for how far my leg is going to go out, I would bring that back and bring it over this way. And I'm using my X again. Everywhere it crosses the X, I go the other way. And that will give me where the little legs would be. Okay, so I know I'm the only one that can see this, but hopefully you're following along and you'll be able to understand it. So I've just brought that. So this leg now is quite long. And this one appears quite long. This one is facing us, so it's foreshortened. This one we just see a little smidge. We have to decide how wide to make the base, so I'm just going to put a line on either side of this. And that'll give me the width of the base. And all of this rest of this will disappear. So you have to ask now, why did I put this? I was checking out my box, see what kind of circle am I ever going to get. That was helpful there. It's time now to clean this up a bit and see what we've got. So you're going to need your Sharpie or another pen that you trust to give you some solid lines. So let's go in and give this some oomph, because we're going to, of course, put our marker paper over top, and we want to be able to see what we've got here. It's going to help us. We'll transform these boxes into things. I often find that it's fun just to start out with an adventure like this. I don't know what any of these boxes could potentially be yet, but as we do more, we might get an idea of what to do. We also want to get in a figure or two, customers. So that's that for our pedestal. These legs look a little bit long for our table, but they will do. And see, these cross over, so that's great. If we didn't use our X, they wouldn't. And they go like this. They would actually go to that vanishing point, but we won't worry about that right now. And this will go like this, because it's the diagonal. Okay, so you've got that. Now the circle. Now if I could get right under that, I'd have a chance, but I can't. So forgive me, this is going to look pretty awful. I'm going to try this. This is a skinnier pen. I want to just sneak up on it a little bit, so I'm wondering if this shouldn't come out more here. I think it should. So as I say, I'm notorious for cheating when it comes to this, so I've got to be more careful. This, I think, was right. Now this won't look well unless we give it some thickness. So give it a little bit of thickness. And we'll work on this some more on our overlay. But there's our table that's 3 feet wide and 3 feet deep. There's our wardrobe, or whatever this display might be. There might be a mannequin inside this, inside the glass display, and that would work fine because we've got more than 24 inches for the width of the mannequin. Although they don't require that much, we have it. And we also have 8 feet height, and they require maybe at the most 6 feet. Some don't have heads, so they wouldn't even need that much. If we want to build into the wall and use our scale, we use this principle. So if I have this as my width for my first increment, and I want to know, given this height, what the next increment will be, as long as these are straight. I don't know if they are, but I have to find out where half is. Remember now, when you have two parallel lines, just turn your ruler and you'll be able to find a half. I divided the 5 in half. So there's my center. My principle is, if I go from this corner through the center, it will give me the next increment, and it does. And it looks like it's the right width, and that will be where I make my next line. You can do that in perspective as well, and since we're going this way, we'll have to do it this way. We'll have to go from this corner through that, through center, and over there. Between 8 and 10, we'll go from here through here, and we'll see what we can get. The first thing I'm going to do, break into the wall. So that's the first step, just break into the wall. Let's go to 12. Okay, so we're extending into 12. So we've got 8 feet, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 feet, and then we're back to 12. So the halfway point between them would be 2 feet from 8 feet and 2 feet from 12 feet, which is 10 feet. So we have to extend that line as well. All right, so we have to just ignore these verticals now. They no longer exist because we've created a hole in the wall using this line, and this line. So I have to know, though, how far deep I'm going in. Remember our diagram? To get this next group of lines, I had to go from this corner through the center and see where it lined up with this. So this is 12, and this is 8, and this is 10. And so we're looking for that, and it's right there. I want to go 3 feet back. So count 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go from here through 10. Maybe use a different color. So I'm going from here through 10, and I'm going to see where it lines up with this. And that will give me 3 feet depth built in. We would just take this up. We don't know how high to take it up, but I always find if I don't have verticals, then all the work I do doesn't make any sense when I'm trying to bring perspective lines over or whatever else I'm trying to do. It doesn't make any sense. At 8, go up 8 feet. and that'll give us the front. And then we're going over to 12, remember. So we're going over to 12. 8 feet. Now we're getting a lot of lines and it's getting confusing, but that's just the nature of it. You just have to ignore everything else and focus on the part that you're doing now. With the part that we're doing now, oops, with crooked lines, even I can see that. The part we're doing now is looking for the underside, because it's above eye level now, so we know that we're going to see the underside of this. So to find it though, we're going from at 8 feet from the back of the room, we're going up 8 feet, and we're going to use our left vanishing point to figure out how much of the underside of this we're going to see, and that's how much. Where that vertical touches this, that's how much. And we'll go across here. All right, so there is our built-in. So this is the side that we can see when we are standing and our eyes are right here, and we're looking into the store. We're out here, way out here at front of the store, just looking in. Then when we look in, we can see this, but we can't see that side because that's hidden. But we can definitely see this side. And these usually don't go all the way to the floor. Sometimes they do. But if they're behind glass, they might not go all the way to the floor. It just depends. And this would be the underside that we were looking so carefully for a minute ago. The pencil crayons really help. And this is the floor, the amount of space. We went back 3 feet, so that's 3 feet of depth. And if you were putting, if this were a display window and you were putting something in here, it would be crucial. If this were a plan and you were seeking approval from the client, it would be crucial to know that that was exactly 3 feet. And then this, now we're not going to see this though, but I wanted to put it in so you could see. This too would continue, and we'll put that in too. And this would be the back, the very back of it. And if we were going to, the next thing we'll do, we'll put some pot lights in here. We'll figure out where they should go. It's terrific. With these grids, you can build into your walls and extend them quite a lot. So you end up with way more room than you thought you initially had. Okay, now to do the rest of it, we'd have to go and use our vanishing points again. So using my right vanishing point, if I bring this across, it touches the back of the box. It touches it here. Maybe I will color this in so we can keep everything straight. So that's the back of our box right here. And it comes all the way down to the bottom. We won't see it though, it's hidden. Now, to find this, we need to use our vanishing point, where these two cross. Where that line crosses that line, that vertical, we need that, because that's going to give us this. Okay, now, this is two things. It's also the match for this. on this other side. So you see, it covers up a little bit of that. And we wouldn't see it anyway because it's hidden behind the wall. Okay, but just to help to clarify it, it's the match for this. Just larger, closer to us. And it's such a small distance. It's only 4 feet, but it's that much larger in appearance. If we want to put some pod lights in on our top here, let's make our X first. From this corner to this corner, this corner to this corner. And maybe this time we'll keep it simple and just put one in the center here. Remember, with ellipses, no matter whether they're in perspective or not, you balance them on a perfectly horizontal line. I don't know what that is. You balance it on a perfectly horizontal line. You put more space at the front, more depth at the front, and less at the back. Again, because of perspective. Even in that short distance, there's that much difference in an ellipse. So we'll do that back here. We'll put a straight line and balance our ellipse front and back, which is just a big mess, but at least it's in the right spot. There. So that's right in the center, but you see, this is where our wall is. So that would be difficult for us to find out without that X.